See, but we didn't know, and they put us on trucks, and you're all sitting in a truck with your rifle and your helmets on, and it's all joking and smoking loud. And the first thing you know, you can start hearing it, boom, bang, and boom. So next we got off, and we broke up in small groups, and a Jeep pulled up. There was a chaplain or whatever it was, and he gets off and he takes his suitcase out, puts on the front. He says, "I don't care if you're Protestant or Jewish or whatever you are." He says, I'm going to give you whatever they give you." So he got out there and he's praying like that, and one of the GIs was there and said, "You know what he's doing? He's giving us the last rites." So then we broke out in small formations. We walked, and then by this time you could hear shells and artillery going, all hell breaking loose.
Right.
And I wound up in the evening into a bunker with 4 guys, and that's all I could see was eyes. I didn't know who they were. They didn't know, and they wouldn't speak to me.
Right. So you get on the boat, and you have summer clothes. You get to Italy. They take the summer gear away.
They took them off. They give us back and the winter clothes back on the ship.
And they give you the winter clothes.
Yep.
So you get to Italy. You still don't know why you need the winter clothes.
No.
You travel by
Truck.
you get to France. You still have the winter clothes with you.
Yeah.
You go pell-mell across France. You get to Belgium. You still don't know you're headed into the Battle of the Bulge. So when did you realize you were in a place you didn't want to be?
When I had the shells going off and the trees blown off, and
Let's go back to Italy.
yeah. And then I think the scariest spot I'll never forget will be when I first see my first dead American. I mean, things going on, like I said, and you see in movies and all like that. But when you get there, it's a completely different story from being training. There's no more fooling around. That's it.
Yeah.
And then later on, we were in the Bulge and back and forth, and we in a small town. We sat down along a wall, and there was a Jeep pulled by with a little trailer on and a canvas on it. One of the guys, I don't know who he was. One of the guys was talking. So he's going to go snoop around what was in the Jeep on the back of the trailer, and he went over there and he picks up the canvas, and he drops it back, and he comes back next to us, and he sits down, and he's looking at us, and he's as white as you can be. I said, "The hell's going on? What's the matter with you?" He's a whole bunch of dead guys in there. So, yeah, we weren't going out of the way to look at it, but I think that's the one that stuns you. When you see you don't think Americans can get killed. They're not supposed to. You're supposed to kill the Germans, but when you see your own, it's kind of rough. But most of the time I was fighting back and forth. We didn't know where we were going. We lost all communication of officers. We lost officers. So more or less, the guy on your right side was just as much a boss as the guy on the left side. And like Chris probably knows that a lot of the fight went on with a matter of just 7, 8 men that held off the Germans like unbelievable. But you didn't know at that time.
Yeah.
And then when it's all over, you don't think nothing of it. Then all of a sudden people say, "Oh Jesus, that's they should have got medals." I told them I seen a lot of guys that should have had medals, but a lot of guys never lived to get medals.
Right.
That's why I mentioned him. I think my brother told me that I think I was brought back maybe to speak to some of these guys, to tell a story about it.
There's a strong possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people believe in that.
Yeah.
So Christian, let's talk about your life in Belgium. You told me that your dad worked for the Hammond Organ Company.
Correct.
And was the sales manager for all of Europe.
Yes.
And was based in
Brussels.
Brussels, which is where you were born. So your dad's an American, and your mom is from Belgium.
Yep.
Okay. And did you move from Brussels closer to Bastogne? Or
No.
how did you end up so that you saw the battle and saw experience?
I was born in 1928, so that's way before the war.
Right.
In a fairly large hospital in Brussels. But we were not living in Brussels. We lived in the Ardennes, where the Battle of the Bulge occurred.
In the Ardennes Forest.
Right? So we had just moved out of the Ardennes on the and we were more in between. But still, I mean, we had literally guns on our lawn and soldiers. The whole house was full of soldiers. And so we saw the battle. I never pulled the trigger, but I saw with my eyes
Right.
and I heard with my ears. So basically, I can understand what Chuck is saying. I know what it is to be scared, hungry, and cold in winter.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons both my wife and I, we saw the war 4.5 years, and we were basically prisoners of the Germans. We had in our case, because we were Americans, we had a German guard in the house at all time,
Right.
forbidden to speak English. So we learned Dutch and French. So I have a Dutch accent and speak French fluently.
And that Dutch accent has drawn some unpleasant attention from some people during your life.
Too often, because very few people can differentiate. There's a big difference, mind you, but between the German accent and the Dutch accent. So many people have placed me as a German. And if you want to get me nervous, you call me a German.
I don't know, maybe Chuck will get nervous.
No. Don't ask him about Germans. He says, there's only one good one, he says.
Yep, the dead one.
We know that.
So you had all kinds of trouble with the Germans.
Oh, yes.
As you said, you had Germans in the house.
Yeah.
You told me that your mother sewed a flag.
Which I have here.
Okay, we'll get that out in a few minutes. But she sewed a flag, and what was different about this flag?
Well, you see, Mother being Belgian, and at the time, Dad was already taken away, and he was in Germany, in concentration camp. So Mother knew that there were 13 stripes. She knew there were 48 stars, because in those days, we had 48 states. Hawaii and Texas and Alaska were not part of the states. So, but she did not know that the stars should be pointing up. If you look at the stars are pointing down. And she would wait until the German guard would fall asleep, and then she would take out her foot-pedal sewing machine, sew a little bit, and then hide it underneath the floor. But we did not know this. None of us knew. That was her own, and it's only when close to the liberation, when she heard that the Americans were about 4 miles away, that she came running or pedaling a bicycle, say, there is a flag underneath such and such a cupboard, little in my bedroom, remove the cupboard, there's a loose board, underneath the loose board, there is a flag, get the flag up. So that's, and of course, within an hour or so, the Germans had taken over the area again, so she pedaled her bicycle back and take the flag down, take the flag
Hide
down.
the flag.
And I guarantee I did not fold the flag. I rolled that flag in a ball and it went underneath the floor very much in a hurry. Because if the German had seen an American flag flying over a house, the house was gone. Yeah.
Wow.
And Mother would have been shot if she had been caught.
Sure.
But the only risk that she was taking is to have the SS come over. And the SS, they didn't come regularly. They would come every month, or maybe 3 weeks. So it was at random, and they would come always in past midnight, in the dark, surround the house, bash in, pull everybody out of bed, and so when they would put everybody in one room, and then they would a group of them. They were usually between 30 and 40 men, and they would count the number of warm beds. And they knew the number of warm beds. They would come back in that one room where we were all and count the number of heads. And if you had one more warm bed than you had heads, the house would have been torn apart. So when we were hiding American citizens, airmen, they didn't sleep in beds. Now, we were hiding a little Jew all through the war, and Eddie Greymeyer had his own bed. And the Germans were not smart enough to count above that we were 9. I was the oldest of 9, but basically there were 10 children. That they saw 10 heads, 10 beds. Okay.
Everything matches.
Yeah.
You tell him about your father was taken prisoner?
Oh, your dad was.
Well,
taken-
I was going to ask him about that, but seeing as you brought it up.
I thought you were going to forget about it, you know?
Oh, no.
no.
That's why we get together and have a conversation before we sit down. So, your dad had some problems with the Germans.
Oh, yeah, but many, because you see, basically, great-grandfather escaped out of Germany into Belgium. Grandfather was born in Holland of Belgian parents. He emigrated to the States in late 1800. So the Germans keep very good records. So they knew that great-grandfather was German. He was a traitor because he had escaped out of Germany. So automatically grandfather was a traitor, automatically dad was a traitor. And so, but because he was American, they couldn't do anything until the 11th of December when, or the 9th of December, because I believe we were attacked on the 7th of December,
Right.
and I believe Hitler declared war 2 or 3 days later.
Right.
And so then he became automatically enemy number one. He was sent to.
Right. So if you were hiding American airmen, where would that hiding place be?
There were 4 floors to the house, and there were no lights up in the attic. And before Dad left, the rafters, they were very wide rafters. He had built chutes in the rafters. And luckily for us, they never came with dogs. And there were no lights, and they were looking down. They never looked up, luckily. And so they would disappear in the chutes. And but there were nothing indicated that they were sleeping there.
Right. So then how did the Germans come to take your father away, and what did they discover that caused them to take him away to the prison
Oh, that
camp?
was strictly because he was an American citizen.
Strictly for his citizenship.
He went to work that day and he never came back. And we found out afterwards, Dad told us, he was on his way back home and they arrested him and gone. But Mother knew where he was because, see, in Belgium, the state troopers are called gendarmes. And the gendarmes were very patriotic. So they sent 2 on bicycle to the house and said, by the way, your husband is in our custody per orders of the Germans. So Mother quickly made a package with some food and warm clothes and brought it over that night. They snuck her in to the jail, and that's the last time she saw him for.
And that concludes part 1 of my conversation with Chuck Wentz and Christian DeMarkin and the Battle of the Bulge. Join us again for episode 2. I'm Bob DeToma, and remember, we're all living history right now.